Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. Training camps in full swing. We've got a game coming up tomorrow. All kinds of exciting stuff going on around the NBA. Make sure you are subscribing to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. If you haven't done so already, again, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications as well. And YouTube viewers, make sure you also like this video. Can also find the podcast over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search NBA Front Office. I'm Trevor Lane, joined by Keith Smith. Keith, plenty to dive into today. I guess let's just hop right into it because the storm has landed. James Harden arrives at 76ers camp, left before he could talk to the media, which was probably a good idea, but he's there. He's there, which means the year will count for him, assuming he stays and doesn't disappear into the Colorado wilderness or something like that.
Yeah, hurricanes making landfall in Colorado. That's good. Probably the first one ever, I'm guessing. It's
I'd assume.
pretty hard, right? I don't know how it would skip over the rest of the country, but yeah, it's kind of funny with the Harden stuff because I think the Nick Nurse quotes were he did most everything, but he has to ramp up a little bit and whatever it was there. So nobody's going to give you much of anything. And eventually he'll have to meet with the media. It'll come at some point here. Then that's probably when we'll get the next, real kind of updates out of it, unless later today somebody's like, actually he pulled his pants down and took a dump at midcourt and we had to practice around it all day or something like that. Like, we'll find out. And we're going to read a little later in the show when we get to nonsense we threw out there, like, tell us what the most disruptive thing you could do is. That's also funny. So yeah, we'll read some of those were pretty good on Twitter. But I mean, all right, he's there. Like, he maybe does go hard in training camp or he goes as hard as he needs to. I'm still not going to be convinced till I see him play a real game and play it at full speed like the James Harden we're used to, that he's locked in and committed. I just, I got to see it to believe it.
Yeah, absolutely. We will get to those suggestions that we got on social media on what James Harden could do to be as disruptive as possible, because that's what the report is, that he may indeed try to be a little bit disruptive. Well, a lot bit disruptive, I guess. We do have a little bit more news, though. Donovan Mitchell will not sign an extension with the Cleveland Cavaliers, kind of similar to the Giannis situation. It's money that's at the root of this. He can simply make more money by waiting until next year. So makes sense. I don't expect teams to start lining up cap space to chase Donovan Mitchell. Doesn't sound like that's the plan here. Like with Giannis, there were some questions about, are the Bucks really going in the right direction? Are they going to continue to push down on the gas pedal? Now that they've got Dame, it appears that those concerns have been alleviated. But Donovan Mitchell, this isn't like, hey, I'm trying to hold the Cavs' feet to the fire. This is more just, I make more money if I do this next summer instead of now. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, and what happens with these extensions is most of these guys become eligible 2 years in to the extension. And that usually means that there's 3 years left on the deal. So they can only add a couple more years, or in Mitchell's case, he has a player option. So he could opt out of that and then add 3 new years after next season, not this season, but after next season. And it's just not lucrative enough for these guys to do that. The money in that first year would be the same. It's being able to add that extra year on to the end of it. So that's why most guys wait until they're down to either the last year or, in this case, maybe a year with a player option left. And then he's got a lot of things. We talked about this a lot with Anthony Davis, whether you can either opt into the player option and then add a couple years, or you can opt out of that and add 3 years. It just is kind of dependent on really what the player wants to do in this situation. So with Mitchell, no surprise at all. Like, this is one of those things. It's probably going to be a story, and clearly it somewhat is because we're talking about it today.
Sure.
But I wouldn't, no one should panic or overreact to this or scream and yell and see, he doesn't want to be in Cleveland. He didn't pick Cleveland in the first place and all that. Now we're still having this conversation a year from now. Then I'm going to be a little more curious about what's going on. But, a lot of that will probably come down to, what does the Cavs season look like? How does it go? How does his season go? Do they take, meaningful steps forward this year as a team? And then we may be having a little bit more different discussion. But, I'm going to reserve all that for, basically the next year.
A team that could be in position to trade for like a Donovan Mitchell type player would be the Knicks. Wouldn't that be something?
Oh man. Yeah, let's start that up all over again. That was a fun, summer.
The Knicks fans are hurling their devices right now. I'm
Right.
sorry, Knicks fans.
Actually, I think Knicks fans might be like, we beat his butt in the playoffs. We're
That's
we're
true.
good. We're
That's
good.
true.
We like what we have. And that's kind of like a fun little subplot, right? To that mini rivalry. I'm not gonna call it a real rivalry yet. So hey, I keep meaning to ask you,
Mhm.
how fun is it that there's a little bit of spice to Lakers Nuggets? Like that's fun, man. I don't want it to go back to guys are throwing haymakers at each
No, no,
other
no,
kind
no.
of
Right.
rivalries. But when teams have a little bit of, they don't get along, there's a little bit of irritation. I'm all for that. I think it makes everything that much better. And the fact that we're going to get that, right away this year, that's fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure that was on the NBA's mind when they booked Lakers Nuggets opening night, was to make sure that they capitalized on that, because as Lakers fans will tell you, the Nuggets have acted like beating the Lakers was their championship. Like they don't even act like they won a championship. They just beating the Lakers was what they wanted. And you know what? Like I get it. It makes sense. It's an interesting dynamic because there's lots of teams that hate the Lakers that the Lakers don't care about.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. And it sounds super arrogant whenever I say that. And like, I'm not trying to come across that way. It's just the reality, because the teams won a lot. There's a lot of teams, especially in the West, that look at the Lakers as like their main rivals that like Lakers fans don't really think of as a rival at all. So the way that you can level that playing field and make the Lakers and Lakers fans see you as a rival is by beating them. And so now maybe we're getting a little bit of a Lakers Nuggets rivalry, which, as you said, is fun. I mean, it's nice to have another team outside of just, oh, the Clippers are super annoying, and of course, the old heads like me are anti Boston and all that, right? But to have another team out there where Lakers fans are like, oh, okay, we got to beat that team. I think that's a good thing for the NBA. It's a good thing for the dynamic, the interest in the league, and just making things a little bit more exciting than, oh, I grew up playing with this guy. He's my best buddy, and we played AAU ball together. In a couple of years, we're going to form a super team together. No, I want to see guys like actually go at each other.
Yeah, me too. And and it's this is our coastal eliteness coming out, right? Where it's,
Right.
for both of our teams, it's, Celtics and Lakers consider each other up here as rivals, and
Exactly.
everybody else is down here at best, just kind of off screen there. It's just that's how it works. I mean, that's just, the reality of the situation. And it's funny because I see, right, Boston and New York have a pretty good rivalry in most other sports. Celtics Knicks has never really been a thing, mostly because they've never been really good at the same times.
Yep.
When the Knicks were really good in the early 70s, the Celtics were okay. And then when the Knicks were really good in the 90s, the Celtics were not very good at all. So they've just never really been good at the same time. And then 76ers, that's kind of come and gone and come back a little bit. And the Heat have been a rivalry just because there's been a lot of playoff battles in recent years for the Celtics. But it's still Lakers above all else. And I try to, sometimes explain that to people, and like, but why? They play twice a year. And it's like, because
Yeah.
that's just kind of ingrained now. Like it's, in those two games, even when both teams aren't good, it still, means more and, means a lot there. So yeah, but I just meant to throw that. I meant to ask you about it the other day, because it seems like every day
Mm-hmm.
somebody from one side or the other
It's
is picking,
commenting.
right? And they're just picking at each other on stuff. And I know that's somewhat driven by they're being asked about those
Yes.
things, but the players they're not shutting it down, right? They're not saying,
No.
oh, I don't care about that, I'm just focused on the season. Like they are, like they're leaning into it too. So let's go. If we have a little bit of aggression on opening night, so much the better, because a lot of times those ring night games stink.
Yeah.
Sometimes the team that gets the rings gets drilled because there's so much emotion. They're just not ready to play.
Well, hopefully that's what we see
After.
happen again.
Yeah, maybe we'll see. Except I kind of don't think that happens with Jokic. Like I think he's gonna be like, okay, can we play the game now so I can go home?
Well, did you see he said he's picked up a basketball a couple of times
Yeah.
all summer?
Yep.
And I'm
And
like,
then did you see Jamal Murray's response?
what do you say?
Jamal Murray said he's lying. He hasn't touched a ball once.
It
And then
doesn't matter.
then they asked him, like, did you enjoy like winning the championship? He's like, I enjoyed quiet boredom. Like he just like
He's,
he what as close to Tim Duncan, I guess, as we've had,
I
in years
guess.
of just like Yeah, I just kind of go out there, kick ass, and then go
But
home.
even he's like leaning into it even more than Duncan
Oh,
did.
oh
I
yeah,
think just
100%.
the,
Yeah,
you know,
yep,
the ironic big fun nickname for Tim Duncan. It's like
yeah,
Jokic is taking it even a step further here.
without a doubt.
Yeah. All right, let's talk a little bit because I could talk more about rivalries for sure. Maybe in a conversation for another day. But rookie scale options
Yeah.
starting to get picked up, which is a thing. It's got to be done what by the end of the month.
Yep, October 31st is the deadline. Anybody from the 21 or 22 first round draft in either of those two draft classes, if they're still under contract, which I believe they all are, I'd have to double check that to be certain. But they have teams have until October 31st to pick up their options for the 2022 draft class, the more recent one. So, like Paolo Banchero's class,
Mm-hmm.
that is the third year option. And for the other class, the 2021 class, that is the fourth year option for those teams. So the reason I brought up Paulo Banchero, Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, the Magic picked up all their options today. The Miami Heat picked up Nikola Jovic's yesterday. They
Mm-hmm.
became the first four players. Generally, a handful of these are done over the summertime, and it just kind of didn't happen this year. And it is somewhat of a formality for this, for I'd say like Banchero and all the guys I just ran through. Very much a formality. Those guys are gonna have their option picked up. It's a no-brainer. They're very good players or on their way to becoming good players. There's a handful of guys every year where it's a little more on the fence if a team is going to pick them up or not.
Mm-hmm.
And when they don't, what happens is the player becomes an unrestricted free agent. Then the team is capped that they can only pay them the amount of their option. That kind of closes the loophole around, well, opt them out and then give them a max early or anything like that. You can't do that. That's not allowed. So that's just something to kind of keep an eye on here. More often than not, teams are very reluctant to decline these in case a guy is, pops in year 3 or year
Right.
4. That becomes a little bit of an embarrassment to the team because you used a draft pick and then you let the guy go for nothing in most cases. So you generally see that. It's usually if a guy truly looks like, oh my God, we blew it. This guy's absolutely awful and can't play, or there's an injury situation where it's like, it's just never going to happen. So most of these will get picked up, but just you're going to see a string of these transactions happen all the way through the rest of this month.
All right, shall we get into James Harden scenarios? What is the funniest way that James Harden could make things uncomfortable or awkward in
Let me pull
76ers
these
training
up.
camp? I'll throw mine out there while you're
Yeah,
pulling those
go
up.
ahead.
So mine that I suggested was James Harden shows up in a Clippers jersey.
I like that.
Shows up to 76ers training camp rocking a Clippers jersey. And then what would be great is if he didn't act like anything was happening. Just
That
show
would
up
be
and just
even
go
better.
through everything normal. Don't even address the fact that he's got the jersey on. Just act like it's a normal day. Everything's great and fine, but rock that Clippers jersey.
We had quite a few suggestions of pulling Andrew Bynum, right? Just show up and shoot from wherever he touches it on the floor, which would be funny because I'm picturing, a little scrimmage action. Joel Embiid outlets it to Harden, free throw line extended, and he lets it fly from 80 feet away. Like, I think that would be pretty funny. There was, let's see, John Corrales, who covers the Celtics. There's this guy, I guess, on TikTok who looks an awful lot like James Harden. And he
Yes.
said sends this guy to in his place, and this
Yep.
guy goes through the whole practice acting as if nothing's wrong. There were more than a few people who said show up wearing a Daryl Morey is a liar t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
There was he should shave off his beard and show up beardless. that was a pretty good one. Show up, demand a trade to the Heat wearing a Jimmy Butler t-shirt that says Tobias Harris over me, which is just mean to Tobias Harris. Somebody suggested he should streak, run around the court naked. I liked this one was give him the ball in the fourth quarter of a close playoff game. That would make the Sixers uncomfortable.
Wow.
That was pretty funny.
That's a good
People
one.
are pretty good with this. He should show up with cases of his wine and cut a commercial in the middle of it. Wear a Santa Claus mask that says Maury may lie, but I don't. Cheesesteaks suck. This person says he should just simply show up.
Just show up. Just be there. Just be yourself.
There were a lot of he should show up and eat something, and generally very unhealthy options that he should, sit there and eat. A lot of them suggested he does it at midcourt.
Did you see
With
the one that said he should show up in a Ben Simmons jersey?
Yes. Yeah, I did
That was
mention that one. Yep.
oh, okay. Yeah,
Um, timely, and we don't do politics on the show, but lead a motion to vacate the office of general manager and get 8 players to vote along with him.
yeah.
It's just timely and funny. Um, wearing a shirt with the photo from his final Rockets press conference that says this situation is crazy and I don't think it can be fixed.
Wow.
This one just made me laugh because I don't even really get it. Reenact a whole episode of the Great British Baking Show where Harden plays all of the characters.
That's pretty random.
Yep. And then there were a couple people who said pull Philip Seymour Hoffman from Along Came Polly.
Oh, make it a rain.
Yeah, make it
Make it a rain and just just hitting the backboard like you're mad at it. Yep. That would be a good one.
So there were several funny suggestions. If you want, you can find the quote on my time or the tweet on my timeline, and a lot of people with pretty funny replies. And there's a couple that I'm not gonna read because we try to keep it family friendly here on the show.
Not a PG answer.
Yes.
Oh man, I'm curious to see exactly what he winds up doing. Again, reports are he may try to make things a little uncomfortable on the 76ers at training camp. So we'll see what happens, but I think there's a lot of good ideas. If he happens to be on X and he comes across this, there's no shortage of ideas for what he could potentially do to make the situation difficult on Philadelphia. That's for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Keith, do you want to talk? Do you want to talk wins and all of that this season? Projections
let's
and that
do
type
that.
of stuff. We have time.
Yeah, let's do this real quick. So this came out of both of us have talked about these things at various times on Twitter, and it's usually just kind of we throw out a tweet, and if you attach a number to anything, people are going to feel a way about it, right? Unless it's the perfect season or anything like that, people are gonna kind of jump on.
Meaning, if I say LeBron's going to average 24 points per game this season, I'm going to have people go, "What? No, he's going to average 35. You're crazy." Or no, he's only going to average 10 because he sucks. Or
Exactly.
You're going to get all these responses.
Yeah. So you and I were kind of talking after it was. Yeah, I had it the other day with the Rockets, and all I said is it's hard to see them getting much higher than maybe 11th or 12th in the Western Conference. And I had a bunch of people kind of say, I don't know, they spend all this money, and then there were some who were like, oh, that's crazy to even think they'd be that good. Again, both sides of the issue. You had it today, I believe, with I think you said the Lakers might be 6-4 in the first 10 games.
Yeah, somebody said, "What are you happy with in the first 10?" And I said 6-4. And I had people coming after me going saying, "Oh, why are you being such a hater? They're going to be 8-2 or whatever." I'm like, people don't realize how difficult that and what type of historically what that would mean. 8-2, we were talking about a 65 win season. If you extrapolate that out over the whole season, I don't think we're going to see a 65-10 win team this year. I think that's a thing of the past, and we talked about that recently too.
Yeah, and that's really what we wanted to spend a little bit of time on today is the NBA, and maybe it's just new salary rules over the last CBA and this new CBA. It's gotten there's been a lot more parity in the league. The best teams in the NBA that you and I really grew up on, and probably even some of our younger viewers, used to win 60 plus games in a year. Now, it wasn't always 68, 69, 70 wins. Those were very rare, but it was not uncommon for a team to win 62 to 65 games in a season. And you might have even 2 or 3 teams pull that off. On the flip side, it was also not uncommon to have teams win 15, 16, 17 games in a season. The league just really isn't like that anymore. Now, pretty much the lower end teams are going to be right around 20 wins. And part of that is you don't have to be absolutely horrendous and at the bottom of the league. And there's not this race to the bottom because you just got to be in the bottom 3, right? With
Mhm.
those top with the flattened lottery odds, that's just where you're trying to get to. So there's no reason day one to be like, oh, hey, we're not going to be very good, so we're not going to play player X all year long or anything like that. Teams don't really do that. Most teams, it's kind of a January, February post trade deadline that they're going to shut guys down, and the league's even taking action to keep that from
Yep.
becoming a full scale thing as well. So there's that part of it. And then on the top end, as teams have really realized, hey, the goal is to win a championship. It's not to win 65 regular season games. They have deprioritized games, and we see teams regularly, even the Warriors, when they were kind of outside of the years where it's like we're pushing for 70 plus
Right.
wins because they were trying to do something special. Outside of those years, the Warriors really started with we'll throw away whole games, like not send the whole starting five to a road game or things like that. And we'll take the loss because we believe that's the thing. So it's just kind of I think we wanted to take a minute to reframe for people. Just if we say, yeah, they're going to be a really good team. They might be the best team in the league. And then later we say, yeah, they're probably going to get 54 wins this season.
Yeah.
Like
It's
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 not
the
we're
new NBA.
yeah, that's it. It's or the same thing if we say, yeah, they're going to be pretty bad. I think they might win 22 games this year. Again, that's just
Mhm.
where we're at right now in the league. It's not, teams just aren't going to be winning, and losing games at the rate that they used to because it's just not where the league is at right now.
Yeah, people are used to historically thinking a good team is 60 plus wins and a
Yep.
bad team is like 10 wins, right? Or
Yep.
11 wins or whatever. And I think both of those numbers are pushing more towards the middle. I talk about it all the time, but the Denver Nuggets, 53 wins last season, and they were the one seed in the Western Conference pretty easily. So that's just the way things are headed. Just like, look, I mean, we talk about some of the teams that got better this year. Look, the Rockets, I don't expect them to be a playoff team, but they got better.
Yep.
They got better. They're not on any given night they could potentially get a win, right? They've got enough competent players. Same thing with like the Orlando Magic, the Detroit Pistons with Cade Cunningham coming back. Like there just aren't as many of those. All we got to do is show up and roll a basketball out and chalk up the win. There's not as many of those anymore because of the play-in tournament, because of the flattened lottery odds. And on top of that, again, the parity, it's affected teams at the top. And like you're saying, Keith, teams are more reluctant on going all out in the regular season. So everybody is pushing towards the middle. It also means that the regular season games, if records are that much closer, if everybody is condensed towards the middle, I think it also adds importance to the regular season games to a degree because that means there's that much more movement up and down the standings.
Yep.
Because instead of some teams having 10 wins and some teams having 65, you've got a team with 20 wins and a team with 55. That creates a lot more just kind of a tight, compact nature of the table, and then you wind up with, oh, you went on a 3-game win streak, you just went up 4 spots in the standings in situations like that.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know, even some of the other measures. If you're like, yeah, record doesn't always measure who the very best team is. If you use even scoring differential, even that,
Yeah,
like last season, I don't know. Maybe somebody will emerge and they'll blitz the league and they'll be
it's possible.
amazing, or maybe somebody will be, emerge the other way and they'll be absolutely rotten. But like the Celtics last year, plus 6.5 scoring differential, that's fine. It's just, I mean, it's fine. It's good. It was the best in the league by over a full point
Yep.
last year. But that's not like there's nothing where you're like, holy crap, historically great with that. The Miami Heat last year, negative scoring differential, 44 and 38. We're down in the second playing game, the 8-9 playing game, and they made it to the NBA finals. So just, just more of a don't freak out and go bananas on us if we mention a team may, as we start doing our predicted standings or we talk about, yeah, their over under is at X. And we're like, yeah, I think they might be a, 50 win team. 50 wins is pretty good now. It's just, it's just reframing expectations a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like as the salary cap moves up and and numbers adjust with it, and we still get caught thinking, "Oh my gosh, that's so much money," because
Yep.
but this the percentage of the cap is actually less than what you're thinking it is. We just kind of have to reframe the way that we look at it. Same thing too, I think with these records. And like you said, the Celtics at plus 6.5 were the largest differential in the league. You go back just a few years and teams are regularly, plus 8 or so is the biggest
Hmm.
differential. So you can even see it in the point differential that things are getting closer and closer as parity is increasing around the NBA.
Yeah, without a doubt.
All right, everybody. Well,
Hey, I
thank
want to
you.
throw
Oh,
one thing
yeah, go
out there
ahead.
just really quick, just because it pertains to our show here and it's something I wrote. I wrote an explainer for Spot Track on what Exhibit 9 and 10
Oh, yeah.
contracts are. A lot of people are confused about these, and I try to anticipate or just quite frankly use the questions I get quite regularly about these. And there's some selfishness involved because now when somebody's like, "What does this mean?" I can just link to the article rather than re-explaining it. So I'm not going to break it all down here. You can go over and find that either on my Twitter timeline. It's right there. Shared it a couple different times, or you can find it, on spottrack.com. It's still one of the lead articles on the site. So you should be able to find it very easily. And one thing, just I know we have a good chunk of Lakers fans here. And if anybody screams like, "Hey, these don't matter, like these guys never make it," Dwight Howard was one and played a massive role in the last Lakers
Mhm.
title team. He started the summer on a summer contract, which is what an Exhibit 9 deal is. Played his way into a real roster spot, and then was a massive part of the team winning the championship in 2020. So they generally, yeah, you're right. Not a lot of these end up. I'd be shocked if anybody has that kind of impact
Right.
that's on an Exhibit 9 or 10. But occasionally they do matter, and then occasionally you see them. Teams use the Exhibit 10s as a way to get a guy on a two-way or shuttle a guy to the G League, who then pops back up months later and shows up as, all right, this is guy, really is something. If I remember correctly, I think Austin Reeves was initially an Exhibit 10 guy before he signed his two-way. I'm not
That sounds
entirely
right.
sure on that. I'd have to, okay, let me look that up to make sure, because I think that is correct. Thankfully, he has not had such a long career yet that his transactions are crazy. No, he went right into a
Yeah, I was gonna
two-way.
say, I think they gave him a
He
two-way
did.
coming out of the
Yeah.
draft.
Yeah, he went right into a two-way. Yep. So, all right. So I was off on that. But a lot of guys have emerged off of these, gotten a two-way, and then become rotation guys down the line. So just something to keep an eye on with these signings if you see one. But I really, laid it all out in pretty great detail of what these mean. And if anybody wants to check that out, and it's kind of a not kind of, it is very much a transactional related thing. And there's literally 95 guys, as I wrote and posted this yesterday, that were on an Exhibit 9 or 10. So there's we're over 100 total, because some guys have already done the sign and waive for G League rights and all that stuff. But I lay all that out in the piece.
Definitely something to go check out over at Spot Track. And of course, you can find Keith at Keith Smith NBA over on X in order to get that as well. All right, everybody. That's going to do it for today. Again, make sure you do subscribe to the NBA Front Office Show on YouTube. Follow the podcast over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time, see ya and stay safe.